Most people imagine a stroke as something sudden.
One moment you refine. The next moment, everything changes.
But the body rarely works that way.
Think about a quiet morning.
The coffee is brewing.
The house is still. Nothing feels urgent. Nothing feels wrong.
And yet, beneath that calm surface, your body may already be working harder than it should. Adjusting, compensating, sending small signals that are easy to miss.
Not pain. Not fear.
Just subtle changes.
A little more tension in the neck.
Sleep that doesn't feel as restoring. Moments where your balance feels slightly off, or your thoughts don't come as clearly as they used to. Most people brush these things aside. They tell themselves, that's just age.
But what if it's not?
What if those quiet shifts are not random at all, but early signs that your body's internal rhythm is losing its steadiness? Here's something rarely talked about. Long before blood pressure spikes. Long before a scan shows a problem. The nervous system often begins to drift out of balance. And when that balance is lost, the brain, the heart, and the blood vessels stop communicating as smoothly as they once did. The good news is this: when something drifts out of rhythm, it can often be guided back.
Not with force.
Not with complicated routines. And not with anything extreme. In this video, you'll learn how small, gentle daily resets can help your body regain its natural sense of calm and stability after 60. By working with the nervous system, not against it.
No special equipment. No medications.
Just a few minutes of awareness that many people were never taught. But that the body still remembers. If you've ever felt that your body is asking for steadiness more than strength,
stay with me.
Because prevention doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes, it begins quietly, with learning how to listen again. For decades, we've been taught to think about stroke risk in very specific terms.
Blood pressure. Cholesterol.
Blocked arteries. And those things do matter. But here's the question that almost never gets asked. Who is controlling those numbers in the first place? Your blood vessels don't tighten or relax on their own. Your heart doesn't speed up or slow down randomly. And your blood pressure doesn't rise just because a number on a chart decides to change. All of that is being directed, moment by moment, by your nervous system. Think of it this way. Your body isn't a collection of separate parts.
It is a living network.
The brain sends signals.
The heart responds. The blood vessels adjust.
Your breath, your posture, even your sense of safety all play a role in how smoothly that system runs. When that communication is clear and steady, the body knows how to regulate itself. Pressure stays balanced.
Circulation flows.
The brain gets what it needs. But when those signals become rushed, strained, or confused, the system starts compensating.
At first, you don't feel anything dramatic. No alarms. No sharp pain.
Instead, the body tightens just a little. The vessels lose some flexibility. The heart works a bit harder than necessary. Over time, that constant low-level strain adds up. This is why two people with the same blood pressure reading can have very different outcomes. One body is calm and responsive. The other is tense and overworked. The difference isn't willpower.
It isn't luck.
It's regulation. As we get older, the nervous system becomes more sensitive to stress, posture, breathing patterns, and even how often we feel rushed or unsafe in our own bodies. Modern life doesn't help.
We sit more.
We breathe more shallowly. We move less gently. And without realizing it, the body stays in a mild state of alert far longer than it should.
Not panic. Just constant readiness.
And the nervous system was never designed to live there. This doesn't mean something is broken. It means something has gone out of rhythm. And rhythm, unlike damage, can be restored. Before a stroke ever appears on a scan, before a crisis ever happens, the body often whispers that it needs support. The challenge is that most of us were never taught how to recognize, or respond to, those whispers. That's where the approach you're about to learn comes in. Not by chasing symptoms, but by helping the nervous system remember how to guide the body back into steadiness. This understanding didn't come from an emergency room. It didn't begin with flashing lights or hospital beds. It started quietly. A woman named Margaret, 71 years old, retired school librarian, still drove herself to the grocery store.
Still met friends for morning walks.
From the outside, nothing looked wrong. But she noticed small things. Standing up from a chair took just a bit more effort. Her sleep felt lighter, less restorative. Sometimes, when she turned her head too quickly, the room seemed to lag behind her for a second.
Nothing alarming.
Nothing she thought was worth mentioning.
So she didn't.
She told herself what many people do after 60. This is just how aging feels.
But here's what stood out.
Margaret wasn't sick. She wasn't diagnosed with anything serious.
Her checkups looked fine. Yet she didn't feel steady. Not dizzy. Not weak.
Just less grounded than she used to be. One afternoon, while waiting at a crosswalk, she noticed her heart racing slightly, not from fear, not from exertion, just from standing still. That moment stayed with her. Because deep down, she knew something important. Her body wasn't failing. It was struggling to regulate. What Margaret was experiencing wasn't a disease. It was a loss of internal coordination. The signals between her brain, her breath, her posture, and her circulation weren't lining up the way they once had. And no one had ever explained that to her. Not because doctors were careless, but because our system is built to respond to crises, not whispers. Margaret was fortunate. Instead of ignoring those signs completely, she became curious. She began learning how the nervous system changes with age. How tension accumulates quietly. How the body adapts until adaptation becomes strain. And most importantly, how gentle daily cues can help the body feel safe enough to rebalance itself.
Nothing dramatic changed overnight. But within weeks, she slept more deeply. Her balance felt more reliable. That subtle sense of internal rush softened. Not because she added something aggressive to her routine, but because she removed constant, unnoticed pressure from her system. Margaret never had a stroke. And that's the point. Most prevention stories come with a dramatic ending.
They come with a quiet continuation of life. The reason stories like hers matter is because they show us something powerful. The body often asks for support long before it demands emergency care. And when we respond early, gently, consistently, we don't just avoid crisis. We regain trust in our own steadiness. What Margaret experienced wasn't unique. And it wasn't mysterious. It was physiology. Inside your body, there's a system that works quietly in the background every second of the day.
You don't think about it.
You don't control it consciously. But it shapes how safe, calm, and stable your body feels. It's called the autonomic nervous system. This system decides whether your body is in a state of readiness or a state of restoration. It regulates heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, blood vessel tone, and even how clearly your brain thinks. When this system is balanced, your body knows how to adapt smoothly. Stress rises and falls naturally. Circulation adjusts without strain. The brain stays well supplied and protected. But as we age, that balance becomes easier to disturb. Years of shallow breathing, constant sitting, mental pressure, and unresolved tension gradually shift the nervous system toward a mild but persistent state of alert.
Not panic. Not anxiety.
Just enough tension to keep the body from fully relaxing. This is where a key pathway comes in. Running from the brainstem down through the heart, lungs, and into the gut is a nerve called the vagus nerve. You can think of it as the body's internal stabilizer. When it's active, the body shifts into what scientists call a parasympathetic state.
Heart rate slows. Blood vessels soften. Inflammation cools.
The brain receives steadier blood flow. When it's underactive, the opposite happens.
The body stays braced.
Pressure regulation becomes less precise. The system loses flexibility. Research over the past decade has shown that reduced vagal tone, meaning a less responsive calming system, is strongly associated with higher cardiovascular and cerebrovascular risk in older adults. In simple terms, the body loses its ability to downshift. And here's the part most people never hear. The vagus nerve doesn't respond to effort. It responds to signals of safety.
Slow breathing. Gentle movement. Soft vibration.
Comfortable posture. These are not relaxation tricks. They are biological cues. When the body receives them consistently, it begins to trust again. And when the body trusts, regulation improves. This is why small, gentle daily practices can have such a powerful effect over time.
They don't force change. They invite it.
And once the nervous system begins to stabilize, many downstream processes, blood pressure control, circulation to the brain, balance, mental clarity, often improve as a natural consequence. Not because something new was added, but because something essential was restored. Before we get into anything you'll actually do, there's one principle that matters more than the techniques themselves.
If this is the only part you remember, let it be this.
The nervous system does not respond to force. It responds to rhythm. Most of us were taught that health improves when we push harder. Exercise more.
Breathe deeper. Try stronger methods.
But regulation doesn't work that way. You can't command your heart to feel safe. You can't order your blood vessels to relax.
And you can rush the brain into balance.
The nervous system listens for cues, not instructions.
It asks questions like,
is it safe to slow down? Is the environment predictable? Is the body supported rather than strained? When the answer to those questions is yes, regulation follows naturally. This is why so many well-intended health efforts backfire.
People strain their breath, force stretches, chase perfect form.
And the body responds by guarding itself even more. What you're about to learn works for a different reason. These resets are not exercises. They're signals. They don't demand effort. They offer reassurance. Done gently, they tell the nervous system, you don't have to stay on high alert. That's why consistency matters more than intensity. 10 seconds done daily is more powerful than 10 minutes done once in a while. And this is especially important after 60. As we age, the body becomes less tolerant of extremes, but more responsive to steadiness. So if at any point something feels forced, uncomfortable, or stressful, that's not a failure.
It's feedback. Ease off. Soften. Let the rhythm guide you.
Because the goal here isn't to fix your body. It's to remind it how to regulate itself again. Once that understanding is in place, the practices that follow make sense. Not as tasks to complete, but as conversations your nervous system has been waiting for. Let's begin with the simplest reset. One that almost everyone overlooks. Yet the body responds to immediately. Right now, without changing anything. Notice where your tongue is resting. Most people aren't aware of it at all.
And that's the point.
The tongue is not just a muscle for speaking or eating. Its resting position sends constant feedback to the brain about posture, breathing, and safety. When that feedback is unclear or tense, the nervous system stays slightly braced, even at rest. The reset starts by restoring a natural point of contact. Gently allow the tip of your tongue to rest against the roof of your mouth, just behind the front teeth.
Not pressed. Not held. Simply resting there. If it feels unfamiliar, that's okay.
You're not forcing anything into place.
You just giving the body a clearer signal.
Now, as the tongue rests, let your lips stay soft and your jaw remain loose. There's no need to clench or control the breath. Take a slow breath in through your nose.
Then let the air leave just a little more slowly through the mouth. That's it.
Stay with that for about 10 seconds. What's happening beneath the surface is subtle but important. This gentle contact engages pathways that connect the mouth, the jaw, and the brainstem, areas closely tied to autonomic regulation. It helps the nervous system orient itself, like finding level ground again. For many people, the first thing they notice isn't dramatic relaxation, but a slight settling. The shoulders drop a fraction. The breath becomes quieter. The sense of internal rush eases. That's regulation beginning. This reset isn't about holding a position perfectly. It's about allowing the body to experience a moment of organized calm. You can do this while seated,
standing in line,
even lying in bed before sleep.
10 seconds is enough.
Over time, these moments add up. The nervous system learns that it doesn't need to stay on guard all day. And when that happens, processes tied to circulation, blood pressure stability, and mental clarity begin to work with less resistance.
If nothing else, let this reset remind you of one thing.
The body often doesn't need more effort. It needs clearer signals. And sometimes, the smallest points of contact make the biggest difference. Once the body begins to settle through simple contact, the next step is to deepen that sense of steadiness. Not by doing more, but by adding a signal the nervous system understands very well.
Sound. Not speech. Not thinking. Just vibration carried on the breath.
Most people don't realize this, but the nervous system is highly responsive to gentle internal vibration. It's one of the fastest ways to shift the body out of constant alert and into regulation. This reset uses what's called a vocal exhale. You're not singing. You're not performing.
You simply letting sound ride on the breath.
Begin by inhaling slowly through your nose.
Nothing forced.
Just enough air to feel comfortable.
Then, as you exhale, let out a soft, steady sound.
Something like MMM or NNN.
Quiet. Low. Almost private.
You should feel the vibration more than you hear it. Let the exhale be longer than the inhale. That lengthening is important. Stay with that for one full breath.
Then another. And another. You don't need to count.
1 to 2 minutes is enough. What this does is remarkable in its simplicity. The vibration gently stimulates pathways connected to the vagus nerve, the same system responsible for calming the heart, widening blood vessels, and improving blood flow to the brain. At the same time, the long exhale tells the body something very specific. There is no urgency right now. For many people, this reset brings an immediate shift.
The breath drops lower. The chest softens.
The mind becomes less busy, not blank, just quieter. Over time, this practice supports healthier circulation and more stable blood pressure by improving how the nervous system coordinates those processes. There's also something deeply grounding about using your own breath and voice this way. It reconnects you to the body from the inside.
No instructions. No measurements.
Just awareness. You can do this reset while sitting comfortably, lying down, or even standing quietly in a room. And if at any point it feels like effort, soften the sound.
Less volume. Less intention.
Remember, the nervous system responds to gentleness, not control. This isn't about doing it right. It's about giving the body a rhythm it recognizes as safe. And when safety returns, steadiness follows. The third reset doesn't look like much from the outside. And that's exactly why it works. Most people assume that when the neck feels tight, the solution is to stretch harder or move faster. But the nervous system doesn't interpret force as help.
It interprets force as threat.
What this reset restores is not flexibility, but awareness. Specifically, the body's sense of pressure and orientation. Along both sides of the neck, just above the collarbone, are tiny sensors that constantly inform the brain about blood pressure and blood flow toward the head. They act like reference points. When they're responsive, the brain knows how to regulate circulation smoothly. When they become sluggish, often due to chronic tension, posture habits, or shallow breathing, the signals get distorted. The brain compensates by tightening the system. Over time, that compensation can affect balance, clarity, and pressure regulation. This reset helps those sensors wake up again. Not through stretching, but through slow, intentional movement paired with breath. Begin seated or standing with your spine comfortably tall. Not rigid.
Just supported.
Take a slow breath in through your nose. As you exhale, gently turn your head to the left, only as far as feels easy.
There should be no strain. Pause there. Inhale again. Then, as you exhale, slowly turn your head to the right. Pause.
Finally, let your chin draw slightly inward, as if creating space at the back of the neck.
No force.
Just a suggestion of movement.
Take one more calm breath.
That's the entire reset. What matters here is not the range of motion.
It's the timing.
Slow movement paired with breath tells the nervous system that it's safe to adjust. As that sense of safety returns, the brain becomes more confident in how it manages blood flow and pressure. Many people notice an immediate sense of grounding after this reset.
A clearer head. A more settled body.
Over time, these gentle signals help reduce the constant background tension that so often goes unnoticed after 60. This is not about fixing the neck. It's about restoring communication. And when communication improves, regulation follows. At this point, it's important to pause and clarify something. These resets are not meant to replace medical care. They're not designed to treat a diagnosis. What they do is much more foundational. They support the system that all other healing depends on.
The nervous system.
This approach is especially helpful for people who feel off. Even when test results come back normal. If you've ever been told, everything looks fine, but I still don't feel steady. This work is for you. It's for those who notice subtle changes after 50 or 60.
A little more tension in the neck. A little more lightheadedness when standing.
A sense that the body doesn't respond as smoothly as it used to. It's also for people who are tired of being told to push harder.
More steps. More stretches. More effort.
The truth is, after a certain point in life, the body responds better to clarity than intensity.
Gentle signals. Clear timing.
Simple cues repeated consistently. That's why these resets are intentionally small. They don't overwhelm the system. They remind it. And because they don't rely on strength, flexibility, or equipment, almost anyone can do them. That said, there are moments when caution matters. If you have a history of fainting, severe dizziness, or unstable blood pressure, these resets should be done seated and slowly, or discussed with a healthcare professional. There should never be pain.
Never strain. Never a feeling of pushing through.
If something doesn't feel right, the body is already giving feedback.
Listen to that.
The most important thing to understand is this. Stability is not something you force. It's something you restore. And restoration doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what the nervous system recognizes as safe. When safety increases, circulation improves.
Balance sharpens. The body feels more trustworthy again.
That's the real goal here.
Not youth. Not perfection. Just steadiness.
Before we finish, I want to leave you with one simple idea. Steadiness is not something you lose overnight. And it's not something you regain all at once.
It's something you practice. Quietly. Gently. Over time.
The body doesn't need to be corrected. It needs to be listened to.
When you give it clear, calm signals. Steady contact. Slow breath with vibration.
Gentle awareness of movement and pressure. It begins to respond in ways that feel familiar again. Not younger. Just more reliable. You may not notice dramatic changes after one day.
That's not the point.
What matters is what happens after a week.
Or a month.
When your system starts to trust that you're no longer rushing it. That trust shows up in small ways. Standing feels easier.
Your head feels clearer.
Your body feels more with you, not something you have to manage. And perhaps most importantly,
you stop feeling like something is quietly slipping away.
This isn't about reversing age. It's about moving through this stage of life with steadiness, dignity, and confidence. So if you take anything from this video, let it be this. You don't need more effort. You don't need more intensity.
You need rhythm.
You need consistency. You need kindness toward your own nervous system. Return to these resets whenever your body feels unsettled.
In the morning. Before sleep.
Or during a quiet moment in the day.
They're not exercises.
They're reminders. And the more often you remind your body that it's safe,
the steadier your life begins to feel.
Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of your steadiness. It carries you through everything else.